It's official. The Toronto Blue Jays have non-tendered Jordan Romano and Dylan Tate.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. As always, I'm Braden Wasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5Wasco. Carter First, too, as well on TikTok and Instagram. At Locked On Blue Jays as well. If you're new here on YouTube or you're listening anywhere else, make sure you hit the subscribe button. You guys have been killing it lately, but it really does help us out. So make sure you guys do all of that. And besides that, we have a Discord as well. You guys can join there, talk Blue Jays with us whenever you want, wherever you want. And we're still raising money for Movember. So if you have the ability to go donate, it really does help. It's for a good cause. Make sure you guys go do that. Link is in the description. Just go and click on that. Throw a $5 donation. It really does help out a ton. Lot to talk about today with the news over the weekend of Jordan Romano being non-tendered, the Canadian. Then we'll talk sort of just about the bullpen in general. Where will the money go? Who are the other options? There's a lot to discuss on this, Carter, especially with the news that it is Jordan Romano and Dylan Tate.
Yeah, time to get into, and obviously we're going to start with the one that's going to hit the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen a little bit harder than obviously the other one, and that is Jordan Romano. We've been talking about this all week, and we kind of said that this is going to come down to how healthy Jordan Romano is. Is that elbow injury going to linger into 2025? And it looks like the Toronto Blue Jays made the decision that they don't think he's going to be, at least himself, for the 2025 season, what we've seen throughout Jordan Romano's career. When you talk about Jordan Romano, the first thing that I saw when this guy got non-tenders is not a lot of people realized how old he was. He's 31 years old. Again, that's not old for an MLB pitcher whatsoever. But at this point in his career, I guess the Toronto Blue Jays did not want to allocate the $7.75 million that was projected to his arbitration. Again, could have went a little bit higher, could have went a little bit lower. But I guess if they wanted to pay a closing pitcher, a guy that they're going to have as their highest leverage reliever, that much money, they wanted to get a sure thing. They wanted to get a guy that wasn't going to have injury concerns. And they must be worried about whether the velo, whether it's just the arm health in totality. But it's going to be interesting just to not see Jordan Romano in Blue Jays colors since he's been here for so long.
Yeah, dude, it sort of hits it sort of hit me yesterday. Actually, I was watching some old clips of the Blue Jays, and just Romano was always just sort of a staple on this team, and for him to not be here, I don't know. For me, it's sort of setting like a new precedent here, a new age of Blue Jays baseball with him leaving, Danny not being here anymore. We're sort of in that next era, and I think we'll see what the Toronto Blue Jays can do. In bolstering this team now that they have a little bit of freed up money. But yeah, man, Jordan Romano, it just sucks, dude. Like I sort of want to go over just sort of his stats and with his tenure with the Toronto Blue Jays. Obviously has spent his entire career here. Over his career, he has a 7.7 WAR, Carter, 20 wins, 17 losses he was tagged with as well. He had a overall ERA of 2.9 and of course 105 saves, the big number, the 105. It's just it's tough to see him go. Besides that, Carter, I know his WHIP is also a 1.141. And yeah, man, I'm just sort of a little bit beaten up about this one. This was one that I think me and you saw coming, but still sucks. It was sort of like the Danny Jansen trade as well. It's like, yeah, we know it probably should/needs to happen. But at the end of the day, I mean, with a guy who spent his entire career with the Toronto Blue Jays, it's tough to see them walk.
This is an absolutely massive progression from the Toronto Blue Jays as well. If you would have said at the end of the 2023 season that Jordan Romano would not be a Toronto Blue Jay going into 2025, I would have called you an idiot straight up. I would have said, there's no way that this is going to happen. This was one of the guys that I was getting a Toronto Blue Jays jersey when we went to the Jays game in May. And I'm like, I kind of want to get a safer player. I want to get a guy that's going to be with the Toronto Blue Jays for a decently long time. I ended up going with Daulton Varsho, but I was going to go with Jordan Romano because I thought, there's no way this guy's not on the team. Going from one of your best relievers on your team to just not on your baseball team in one season is a pretty crazy transition. So with Romano, it's a 6-year career, obviously was very good pretty much throughout his entire career with the Toronto Blue Jays. So whether he can re-sign with the Blue Jays, which we'll get into. How likely is that to happen? But if he goes to say like a division rival, just anywhere that Romano is going to go is going to take a little bit of an adjustment period. If it's not with Toronto, if it's not with Toronto in the upcoming season.
Yeah, and I think we could probably put it out there right now that he's not going to be a Toronto Blue Jay. As much as there is the possibility, it's always there. I think this just puts a bad taste in everybody's mouth, and I would be shocked, for him to rejoin the Toronto Blue Jays. But at the end of the day, I understand the decision. Obviously, there was some arm issues going on because I don't think you let Jordan Romano walk, even at the price point he is at, if it's just for the reason of trying to save some money. I don't think so. I think this has to be some injury problems. His velo must have been dropping in the sense of, we saw at the end of last year that his velo was down slightly. And I think that this goes on to the injury component. And if the injury was going to, sort of be lasting and he wasn't going to be able to get back up to his top velo numbers, obviously that's why the Toronto Blue Jays, in my mind, pulled the trigger on non-tendering him.
Well, and he was struggling with injuries earlier on in the season as well. And he was supposed to come back at some point in the season, then just kept getting delayed. The elbow impingement ended up having surgery, which shut him down for the entire season. But even then, when we were talking in July and August, there were still talks that Jordan Romano could come back at the end of September. Just at some point, if the Toronto Blue Jays were willing to make a playoff push or in a position to make a playoff push, obviously with the way the dominoes fell, the Toronto Blue Jays were not in a position whatsoever to make a playoff push. So that did not matter in Jordan Romano's sake. I guess they wanted to shut him down and ideally be ready for 2025. But as we went through, getting closer to this non-tender date, initially we're like, yeah, the only way this is going to be a non-tender is if there is some injury troubles. But even then, we were not really on the page of that. And then as we got closer and closer to the deadline, more and more reports came out. And it seemed like there wasn't a lot of confidence in Jordan Romano and his ability to be effective on the baseball field in 2025. And that just leaves our bullpen at an even worse state. This was one of the worst bullpens in all of baseball in 2024. And you lose Jordan Romano, Dylan Tate. I'll just quickly go into. It's a guy that never really got it together with his career. I guess with the $1.9 million projected arbitration, they didn't think he'd be a reliable guy in 2025. It's not a ton of money in the baseball world. But when you have to make a million moves anyway, I guess Ross Atkins would rather maybe just take some shots on the waivers, take some shots on some maybe league entry-level free agents and decide to move on from Dylan Tate as well. But this is going to be a massive overhaul of a Toronto Blue Jays bullpen where we're going to have to see a lot of moves if they need to be competitive, if they want to be competitive for 2025.
Well, and that's part of the reason why I was a little bit shocked with this. I think for a completely depleted bullpen as they already have, to now go out and have to find yourself a really good closer or some higher leverage guys, maybe Chad Green takes over. We'll get into sort of how this bullpen looks coming up. But Carter, this doesn't, in my mind, it really, the injury has to be very prevalent. Otherwise, I don't know that you can go into an offseason with probably at least 4 bullpen guys probably needed. I think that's very ballsy to assume that you're going to go out and pick up some good guys in free agency. I just don't necessarily believe it. So this move is shocking. And I'm still a little bit not sure where to go with my thoughts on this because a little bit of me gets it. But in the other sense, we're looking at you let Dylan, even going on to the Dylan Tate stuff of it, it's like, why not just have him there? You can pick up a guy and then maybe release him later, whatever you need to do. But at least you have something of a stable piece for the bullpen, or maybe not stable piece, but you have a guy. Right now, the Blue Jays are looking to fill a ton of spots with who? The Wind right now? Who are they going after? We don't even know right now. There's been no really for sure players that they are looking at for the bullpen, which I think is a big issue right now. They don't have a direction for this bullpen, and now we're letting one of our closer, our guy, go, and then another guy who was willing to be here and stay here. I don't know, Carter. I'm a little bit shocked.
And good thing that they tendered Erik Swanson. That would have been a huge blow again to the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen. And I'll break it down the second segment, who is going to belong to the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen. But with these moves, with non-tendering Dylan Tate and Jordan Romano, they save about $9.7 million on the market. So that is probably good enough to sign at least one high leverage bullpen arm. And with the projected arbitrations now, the Toronto Blue Jays contract payroll right now is $182 million. Again, it can go a little bit higher, a little bit lower with the way the arbitration hearings work out. That gives them now about $60 million to spend in free agency. And there hasn't really been any talks about bullpen arms. They've been linked to maybe the odd guy here and there, but there's nothing concrete. There isn't anything like a Max Fried type of thing where it's like, oh, the Toronto Blue Jays are a favorite to land this guy. There hasn't really been a lot of talk about the bullpen. And I think this all goes back to the guy that we're talking about nonstop, and it's Juan Soto. I think before the Toronto Blue Jays do anything this offseason, they want to figure out what is happening with Juan Soto. Is he going to come to Toronto? Are they going to be paying Juan Soto $45 million plus a year for how long? Things like that. And then after that, they're kind of put the pieces together and build around Juan Soto. And the more and more that I think that if we sign Juan Soto, this Toronto Blue Jays bullpen is going to be a problem for 2025, because you look at how many moves that you're going to need to make this even just the bullpen serviceable, not even just a top 15 bullpen, just maybe not a bottom 5 bullpen again. You're going to have to make a ton of moves. You're going to have to pay some guys. So it's more and more as we get farther and farther in this offseason. Again, Juan Soto is going to be a massive component of this. But if they do land Juan Soto, I feel like this bullpen is going to be a bunch of no-name guys that haven't really proved it at the major league level, and it might be a struggle again in 2025.
Yeah, Carter, and just talking about Juan Soto, I'll give a little bit of an update here on sort of where that situation is at. Juan Soto will start receiving contract offers this week. They've had their meetings. They've talked to who they need to talk to. Now it's about the offer. So those should start coming in this week. And yeah, Carter, we'll get more into this bullpen sort of as we continue along here. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back and sort of discuss where this bullpen's going to be at, what moves can be made, all that and more coming up right after this break.
Today's episode sponsor is Omaha Steaks. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off site-wide during their cyber sale at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with promo code MLB. With 5 generations of experience, Omaha Steaks consistently delivers the world's best steak experience, and their gifting experts have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages starting at $89.99. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide during their cyber sale at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code MLB and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off at OMAHA steaks.com and add an extra $30 off with promo code MLB. Minimum purchase may apply.
So, Carter, as we continue here talking about the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen, because that is the talk of the day, who's left here, my guy? Like, what are the options?
Yeah, if nothing were to happen with the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen, I mean, God forbid, that would be the worst bullpen experience we'd ever have to see for 2025. You got to assume that at least a few moves are going to be made. How high quality of moves are they going to be is something that we're going to have to see, and it's going to have to be laid out by Ross Atkins. But right now, when you're looking at the current state of the bullpen, I guess right now you'd have Chad Green as your closer. Did it a little bit in 2024. You'd probably slot him in there right now. Erik Swanson would be your setup guy. Next coming in, it would probably be Brendan Little as our third guy, which when we did our Brendan Little episode, he was our fourth guy when we had Jordan Romano coming back, and we weren't exactly excited about that. So you kind of know how we feel about Brendan Little being the third guy now. You got to assume that Yariel Rodriguez is going to be in this bullpen with how many moves they're going to need to be made. And with Jake Bloss, with guys like that, you have Bowden Francis coming back with the talks of starting pitching. Maybe Yariel Rodriguez is in this bullpen. So I'm going to throw him there for this example here. Ryan Burr would be number 5. You have Easton Lucas coming in number 6, Zach Pop as number 7, and Michael Peterson as number 8. Not great. Like, and another reason that I thought it was very interesting they didn't give Dylan Tate a contract is because they keep Zach Pop a tendered contract at $1 million. Zach Pop was one of the worst relievers on this team in 2024. So Dylan Tate was statistically better than Zach Pop. Again, you're making $900,000 more than Zach Pop. But at this point, from what I saw from Zach Pop and what we saw a little bit from Dylan Tate in his very short time span with the Toronto Blue Jays, and it's just 2024 in general, I would have had Dylan Tate on the team at $900,000 more than Zach Pop. And I used to be a big Zach Pop guy. I still don't really understand why this guy isn't that good, because his stuff is disgusting. He throws hard. He's got a nice sinker, but he can't really put it all together. This bullpen is an absolute mess right now.
That's unbelievable. Like, you read those names and I'm like, oh my God, this team is going to suffer. And I just don't understand how they expect to go out and make like I said, probably 3 moves for this bullpen in free agency. I'm assuming that there's going to be a trade somewhere in here. We talked about it, I think it was 2 episodes ago, Carter, about a possible trade for a reliever. And I think that now with this Jordan Romano moving on, non-tendering Jordan Romano, I think that's their only option to get somebody that's really good, solid. I think it's going to have to be a trade. I got a list of a few guys that are, potentials that the Blue Jays could sign. But I think for a big name, I think it's going to come down to a trade. But I got a couple here. Tanner Scott, Jeff Hoffman, Clay Holmes, Carlos Estevez. I mean, those are just to name a few of the guys that are available. But you're not going to go out and sign them for cheaper or much cheaper than you would have had to sign Jordan Romano for. So this to me, I hate to keep saying this. I understand that obviously there was injury problems and concerns. That's why you move on. But I think that this sets the Blue Jays up for just a hell of a 2025 for their bullpen.
Where are we going to be at if Jordan Romano just goes to whatever team? Say it's not the Toronto Blue Jays. We don't think it's probably going to be the Toronto Blue Jays unless it's like on a very team-friendly deal. What are we going to say if Jordan Romano goes somewhere and absolutely shoves and does Jordan Romano stuff, gets his velo back? Like, where are we going to be at with Ross Atkins? Is that going to be the final straw with this guy? If it's not injury concerns, in what other world are you non-tendering Jordan Romano?
I don't know. And that's exactly what I mean. If he ends up going, I know there was already sources coming out that are saying the Brewers are looking at Jordan Romano. And so what? We're going to face the Brewers. Jordan Romano is going to tear up the Toronto Blue Jays, and then we're all going to be mad again. I don't know. I could just sort of, I'm looking into my crystal ball here, and I'm going to see that. I'm going to see that whatever team he goes to, the Blue Jays are going to look back and think, why in the world? We're going to sit here on this podcast probably and talk about what a dumb mistake letting Jordan Romano go was. And unless the injury troubles were impossible, he's not coming back at all, nothing's going to help him, he's screwed, why not take the shot on him when you're going to have to go and pay another guy more, or you're going to have to trade away pieces to get a guy that maybe does the same thing as Jordan Romano? I don't know, Carter. It's just in my head. I don't like what I'm seeing in the future here.
Yeah, when you try to give Ross Atkins credit, and you try to think that, maybe it is the injury concerns. But the problem is, you look at Ross Atkins' track record, and there just really hasn't been anything released about the current state of Jordan Romano. Again, we are in November, so it's very early on. The offseason still is going to partake for another 2.5, 3 months. So we still have a fair amount of time until and even the pitchers and catchers are reporting. So he does have time to kind of figure it out and try to get that injury fixed, get the elbow back in working condition. But it's tough to just fathom to Jordan Romano not being on the Jays. Is just so little known about this injury and just how the bullpen is. So we're curious to what you guys think. Is it an injury thing? Do you think Ross Atkins is just trying to move on from what hasn't worked in Toronto? There's so many options of guys they can bring back, but we're at the point is, do you want to run back the same team when you haven't gotten any success whatsoever with guys like Kikuchi? They could sign in theory. They could sign Danny Jansen in theory. They could sign Jordan Romano in theory. It's just, would you want to do that when it hasn't worked in the past?
Yeah, Carter. And a little bit of me, thinks about that and thinks, okay, what are the options? Should they now go out? And I know there's people asking about Danny Jansen. Should they re-sign him? People now are going to be saying the same thing about Jordan Romano. Should they put in a lower bid for Jordan Romano? Well, no. At the end of the day, Jordan Romano will probably make his money. He'll probably go to the Brewers and make that money, or another team, because I think other teams will look at Jordan Romano's track record and understand that he is a quality reliever and a quality closer. In my head, I don't understand. I don't understand this move. And I think what frustrates me about this whole situation is that there wasn't the information coming out about Jordan Romano. There wasn't the knowing. There wasn't a press conference. There wasn't somebody coming out and saying, this is why we non-tender Jordan Romano. And it doesn't even have to be like a slander. It just has to be, hey, he's got injury troubles. We can't afford to take a kind of shot with that kind of money. That's all that would need to be said. But instead, we're all sort of left in the dark. And I get it. That's how things work in the MLB, in all of sports. They try to not let you into, media and the fans in on everything. But for Jordan Romano in this situation, I feel like, brought up as a Blue Jay, then just gone out of nowhere. I feel like this would have been the opportunity to at least pull back the curtain a little bit.
Yeah, some are saying the Toronto Blue Jays brought back their own Canadian. They brought back Zach Pop and they let Jordan Romano walk. That's going to be an interesting one if we get down the stretch. And Jordan Romano, again, he's with the injury, he's probably going to sign a discounted contract. It's not going to be, I don't think it's even going to be close to the 7.75. I think the team might be able to get Jordan Romano on a $4 million, maybe even a 3.5, just with these injury concerns, the uncertainty. And just with the relievers, it's tough to take a chance on a guy like this when there's so much uncertainty. But you got to believe that the other GMs, the other MLB executives know more than we do on this. If you're going to take a chance on a player, you want to know, especially with his throwing arm, a pitcher, you want to know how that pitching arm is going to look in that next season. And you brought up some options. Jose Leclerc would be another guy that if you want to get more on a discounted price, that'd be an option for the Toronto Blue Jays. Tanner Scott, it makes all the sense in the world at this point. They have Brendan Little as their one lefty. They need another left-hander reliever desperately. They need high leverage. They need middle leverage. They need low leverage. They need every single type of reliever on this Toronto Blue Jays baseball team. So Tanner Scott would be a massive fit for this team. And obviously he's a very good reliever, has the track record, everything like that. I think that is one of the safer options on the market. But it's going to come down to free agency. And we need Juan Soto to sign, I think, first before we do get some of these bullpen arms. There's a ton of other guys that, again, can be kind of looked at. We just went over like the higher leverage guys on the market. But with Ross Atkins, you never really know what this guy's going to do. So it's probably going to be some random guy that me and you debatably have even heard of, and Toronto Blue Jays fans that watch this podcast maybe have not heard of. And they're going to try to spin some of this into us getting excited for a rejuvenated bullpen. And I'm not sure if they're going to be able to deliver on that promise.
Yeah, I agree. That's sort of what I see in the cards coming up is exactly what you said. They're going to put their classic Blue Jays spin on something. And try to convince the fans that this was a great move, even though it's, like you said, nobody that we've heard of. And saying that they're this great player, me and you will dig down into the stats and we'll see, oh, they weren't a good player. Okay, now where do we go? So, but, again, we'll have to wait and see. All this news comes out. You know what, Carter, let's take a quick break. Let's come back. Let's talk about sort of what now is an option with the extra money that is available from the Toronto Blue Jays. We'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. You know what? I spent all day yesterday just on the couch watching football, placing bets. It was a blast, so go have some fun, and the bonus bets sort of give you a little bit of free reign to go and make whatever crazy bets you decide you want to. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need in one place to place live bets on the NFL. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So, Carter, we talked about, what the state of the bullpen is, what happened to Jordan Romano. Now we see that the Blue Jays have a little bit more wiggle room with the amount that they're going to spend thanks to non-tendering Jordan Romano. So, Carter, where do you honestly think, first of all, what was the point of all this? Number two, where is this money going to go?
The point of all this, I mean, it just kind of comes back to the underlying condition. It's the injury. It has to be that. And just a fresh face maybe with the Toronto Blue Jays. I think the uncertainty, you don't, and that's the problem. It's kind of a hypocritical statement I'm going to make here, is that you're uncertain with Jordan Romano, but you're non-tendering Jordan Romano, and now you're bringing even more uncertainty to the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen. So kind of where do they go from here? I think Ryan Yarbrough is going to have to be a guy that we discuss more often. It's going to be a relatively cheap option. He was very good in 2024. If you want that middle long reliever, that is an option there. But again, when you look at Yariel Rodriguez, he could probably fit into that same role that Ryan Yarbrough is doing as well. So I think it comes down to what you want Yariel Rodriguez's contract, or sorry, not his contract, his role to be with the Toronto Blue Jays in 2025. And is he going to be a starting pitcher? And that's going to be something they're going to have to figure out this offseason. Ross Atkins has said that he's not sure what he wants Yariel Rodriguez's role to be. And I think that is going to come from his free agent signings. If he does sign more starting pitching, if he can get bullpen arms, again, there's going to be a bunch of different things that go into this. Age, term, obviously value, things like that. Lefty versus righty. There's multiple things that go into these bullpen arm decisions. But there's a ton of guys on the market that are available. Again, like the headliners are Tanner Scott, the Jeff Hoffmans, the Clay Holmes, Kenley Jensen, Chris Martin, those type of guys. Danny Coulombe's another guy that I could see coming from the Baltimore Orioles. Like I said, the Toronto Blue Jays need left-handed pitching. I think Danny Coulombe could be a guy that does come to the Blue Jays from the Baltimore Orioles. Like I said before, Coulombe was very good with the Orioles. And if the Toronto Blue Jays could take away any talent from interdivision teams, it's going to benefit them and also make the other team a little bit worse. Blake Tryon would be another guy. Obviously, you saw what he did in the World Series. Looked unbelievable. I would love to get him on a contract. But just looking at the list of options that we have here, there's a lot of Toronto Blue Jays relievers that were traded at the trade deadline that obviously have not been re-signed yet. And I think a lot of them are going to be seeing new teams, be new faces on new teams. I don't think Gimmy's going to come back to the Mariners. Like, I don't think Trevor Richards is going to go back to the Minnesota Twins. So that's going to be interesting to follow where these ex-Toronto Blue Jays guys went and which guys the Toronto Blue Jays are going to take a chance on for 2025.
Yeah, Carter. And you know what, for me, what all this says is that the Blue Jays are, I don't want to say all in, but as all in as you can be on Juan Soto. And what that does is they're freeing up money to be able to ship him the bag. They might fly a helicopter over and legitimately drop the bag. Will they get him? Again, everybody knows my opinions and thoughts that he's not going to be a Toronto Blue Jay. But I think that the Blue Jays still consider themselves a top contender for him. And if that's the case, they want to be able to free up money to ship it to him if need be. Now, this all comes back to when will that Juan Soto decision be made? Because as soon as that's made, either way, it allows the Blue Jays to start looking at, okay, now what's plan B or what's the option around Juan Soto if best case scenario. But I think everybody's sort of in that middle ground where they were just waiting for the Juan Soto news to drop, where he signs, and then it's like open season. So again, I understand the non-tendering, the Blue Jays freeing up some money as well, because even if the Juan Soto deal doesn't happen, there's other guys. There's other guys that need to be paid, that they're going to be paid. Like I always bring up Anthony Santander. I know some people aren't a huge fan of Anthony Santander, but I am. So you're going to have to pay him money. You're going to have to pay whoever else you get money and whoever else you get, and then the bullpen. So again, as much as we say we don't care about the money, pay everybody, it's not our money anyway. That's sort of a crappy way to look at things, because at the end of the day, they care about the money. So when we do our predictions and where guys are going to end up, we have to remember, we have to think about it from the Blue Jays owner's standpoint, not, me and Carter are sitting on our couch, what would we do in our fantasy leagues?
Nah, and that's fair to account for. But even if the Toronto Blue Jays do sign Juan Soto, there's still the blaring need of a bullpen. It doesn't matter if you get Juan Soto. He can't pitch. If Juan Soto might be able to hit 3 home runs in a game, but if the Toronto Blue Jays lose 11-8 because they don't have a bullpen, that is going to be a massive problem. We saw in 2021 how bad the bullpen was when the offense was actually good. When the Toronto Blue Jays were hitting home runs, they were driving the ball into the gap. They were, again, getting these big innings, having some rallies, some 2-out rallies, which we haven't really seen previously. But the bullpen was a massive factor. When you went and ran Adam Simber as your setup guy, that's not really a place that you want to be. This year, you again, is Chad Green a closing pitcher? He was okay for the Toronto Blue Jays down the stretch, but that's not necessarily a guy that I'd want to be my closer on this team. So no matter what, even if you can get Juan Soto, even if you get guys like Santander, Bregman, you're going to need bullpen arms no matter what. At least one high leverage bullpen arm, one guy that has been established in the league. Because if it's just Chad Green, Erik Swanson, then a bunch of guys that you're just taking chances on, and then you say you have an injury, which always happens in baseball. You have one of those guys go down, you're going to be in a very volatile spot from the bullpen. So whether it's starting pitching they can get, so they could get some of these starting pitchers to go into the bullpen, or vice versa, this team is going to need pitching as much as we say that, the starting pitching is good enough. You're going to have to address the bullpen in one way or another.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you. I'm just saying I don't think that necessarily that's going to be – I don't think the Blue Jays are going to go out of their way right now and be like, we need to sign 3 bullpen guys. I think it's going to be, let's see what happens with Soto. Then, okay, plan B time, then it's addressing the bullpen. I don't think that their thought process right now is, our big splash in free agency needs to be 3 bullpen arms. I just don't think that that's going to happen. I think we're going to see the Soto thing wrap up in the next few weeks. Then it'll be like, okay, everybody, a couple other guys in the market, some big names, and that'll open it up to open season. Then the Blue Jays can start targeting specific needs.
See, I'm getting to the point where I don't even think the Toronto Blue Jays are going to make 3 bullpen signings, whether they get Juan Soto or they don't get Juan Soto. I think just with Ross Atkins, with what he's done previously, with his lack of paying bullpen arms throughout his tenure. Again, he has said this year he wants to be more aggressive in the reliever market, but it is all going to come back from Juan Soto. But my just point on that was, even if you do get Juan Soto, it doesn't matter if you do or don't get him. The bullpen's still going to be needed to be addressed no matter what. If you have Vladdy carrying the offense, if you were have Juan Soto carrying the offense, you're going to need somebody to pitch out of this bullpen to be effective.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm not arguing that at all. Just comes down to the fact that I think we're going to be in a big limbo stage here for the next month, just to wait and see when, after all these signings happen, okay, now what's the state of the bullpen? I don't think that there's going to be many bullpen signings within the next 2 weeks. So, I think we'll be questioning the decisions for the next 2 weeks until, they drop that first move on us. But in saying that, Carter, you got anything else before we sort of kick out of here for the day? I know there was a lot of bullpen talk, but after, everything that happened this weekend, it was needed for sure.
Yeah, it's tough because we can't really add into anything right now because it's all Juan Soto. That's all we're hearing in the Toronto Blue Jays media. And we believe we're on the fence that it's going to take a Juan Soto signing, whether it's with the Toronto Blue Jays, whether it's with the Mets, with the Yankees, for just any team that's involved with Juan Soto to do anything in free agency. And as we've seen before, a lot of these free agent moves do happen in December, January, things like that. You don't really get anything happening in November, especially when you got a big fish like Juan Soto. But even for the littler guys, for the guys that are middle relievers, just guys like, even looking at the transactions throughout the MLB right now, there's probably been 15. The Jonathan India trade was kind of cool to see. That was like the first big move of the offseason, but there hasn't really been a lot to see so far, and that usually does pick up a little bit in December. So we have a lot to look forward to. This season does feel a little bit different than previous seasons. Seems like the Toronto Blue Jays want to be aggressive in the free agent market, whether that is for Juan Soto, whether that is for bullpen arms, whether that's just for other positional players that are positions of need for the Toronto Blue Jays. We're going to hope for this offseason that there is a big move made, whether that is any of these big free agents. We just need somebody to just ignite the Toronto Blue Jays fandom, get a little bit of excitement back in Toronto Blue Jays baseball.
Oh God, wouldn't that be fun? Remember like enjoying baseball all the time? Like that was awesome. And not, screaming at your TV on the couch or coming onto the podcast and screaming at my camera.
Yeah, like let's maybe get go for 85 wins, not even go for the big 90, like 85, or let's go for 82. 82, I just got over 500 in 2025 is maybe the goal we got to set up. But with what we've been promised throughout these last couple of years for the Toronto Blue Jays, I don't think we can be too content after 85 wins. I think it's playoffs at minimum, playoffs or bust for the Toronto Blue Jays in 2025, and that's why we're already here. And some team or some players, not players, some fans are saying that, oh, maybe the Toronto Blue Jays should have rebuilt in the current state. So we're going to have to see how it all plans out. And with Ross Atkins right now, he's not giving too many people too much to talk about right now, but hopefully that does come in the near future. So I just want to say thank you guys for watching. Likes, comments, everything recently has been appreciated. And let's just hope for a transaction. Let's hope for one sooner than later so we can get excited about Toronto Blue Jays baseball once again.
Yeah, we'll make sure we have everything live here on YouTube. If any big moves happen, if there's a big signing, you guys should know that we'll be live. We'll be live right here on YouTube. If not, if it's a smaller signing, you watch out for the podcast the next morning. We'll have that all out for you guys. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Take it easy. Have a great Monday.